On this Monday morning, it is the 15th of January 2018. In the United States, we celebrate the life of Martin Luther King. And sometimes we blow him up to be like as it's been said, as a mascot, as a parade float, as big as Washington and Lincoln. And in his own right, he was a disruptor, much like others. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It helped us think from a different way. But sometimes we get so caught up in the words and we take them to heart and we blow them away and say, "Oh, he said, oh," and we shut the door. We close the door. And why do we close the door? We're afraid. We hover. We cower in fear. Instead of addressing the ills of society, addressing the needs of our team, of our family, we shut the door. And then we say, well, why isn't things changing? Why aren't things changing? Why haven't this gone to pass? And yet we are called to be purposeful in our network, in our sociality, in being able to get to a point where we recognize that the door needs to stay open. We may disagree. We may come from a different approach. We may have a difference of opinion, but there's no reason to take it into a slugfest, into anger and frustration. Instead of dealing with the anger and frustration, turn them into the rallying cry for a change. Not to destroy, but to raise the conversation, to think into it. Martin Luther King Jr. said, all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are made to live together because of the interrelated structure of reality. We are interrelated. What we do affects others indirectly. So if we work towards a positive, towards a solution, towards harmony in the group, we will create this wonderful world of positivity, of getting further, of creating new solutions, of building a better society, of creating something that is of value. Why do we run from it? Why do we want to close that door? Why don't we point out the ills of society and say, yes, they are issues. We do need to come together and figure out a path forward, and not this black and white. Leadership is not black and white. Leadership is missing the color and energy to move forward. Leadership needs people to fill that in, to bring that to fruition. In another place, Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. So when your door is closed, you need to still keep going forward. And if you close that door, how are you going to find a new ally? How are you going to find perhaps your enemy, which really isn't your enemy, but a person with a different approach? How are you going to bring them into your fold? We all start off with different perspectives. There are many instances throughout time. You can go back into the Bible. You can look at Moses and how he disrupted the thought. You can look at, Washington and Lincoln, for instance, in our country, and others around the world that are making a stake for a positive solution, for a change that will lead to greater success, lead to a promise, lead to a commitment, lead to a vision. And the thing that we look at when we look at this particular day is that the things that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about, climate change, poverty, inequality, healthcare, and even some political disagreement, but he didn't really get into that. He kept the faith. He kept the faith that the country would be whole, that there is one day when all will walk together in harmony. And yet today we still see that divide, and it's more pronounced because of the media and because of our awareness to have this instant access across our social media to raise the fervor. But the problem is we're not also raised in conversation. So what's step one? Number one, keep the door open. You have to keep the door open. And in doing so, you can then have a conversation. If you keep the door open to another person in your family, you can create the conversation, create the channel to be able to talk forward, to talk through issues. If you keep the door open, you're much more willing to be friendly and to be accepting of others. If you keep the door open, you're going to find that today is a new day. If you keep the door open, you'll realize that yesterday's dilemma and yesterday's problem can be much more readily accessed today and resolved because you're able to bring others in. If you keep the door open, you can create the conversation to create and challenge and grow yourself and take your place in making a difference in your world. If you keep the door open, you can realize that what you do to help another will have impacts upon not only yourself and that other person, but beyond. People will see your efforts. People will see that you are leading towards a positive change, to a greater environment, to a better world. And I look at it just almost 5 years ago, being in Guatemala, in a country war torn, coming out of civil war. It was 20 years past that. And yet the conversation needs to change. Corruption was high. As you can see within the last year, the Guatemalan people have rose up and said, no more corruption. We need to clear the upper levels of government. We need to clear our government to work for us instead of for each other. We need to remove the corruption. We need to make a change. And as governments, that change conversation needs to happen. But nearly 5 years ago, we touched 20,000 people. We planted the seeds of leadership, of what it means to be a good leader, a good steward of gifts, of what it means to make a difference in the world. And those people in that country that have been touched by that program have worked with others in their world, in their immediate world, through 30 weeks. And it continues and continues. Those roundtables continue. Now over 200,000 people have been touched through these lessons of just learning what it means to be a good leader, to learn what values are important and that they should embrace to make sure that their country is moving forward. And in this country, we could do the same thing. We're afraid to ask. We're not keeping the door open because we see division. We see you and me instead of us. We see this difference. We see a divide. How many times have you looked at your neighbor and they just look back and not say anything? It's amazing how many times they can go through a neighborhood, and say hello and nothing. They just stare at you. We put fences between our properties to demarcate our property lines. Stay on your side. Sometimes the conversation is good and we pull down that fence. I'm thinking about Home Improvement where Tim the Toolman Taylor and his neighbor are talking. You could barely see his face, right? But they created, like, that fence was not existent. They were friends. So how can you challenge your thought process today? How can you keep the door open? Will you keep the door open? Will you be open to someone's differing opinion? Do you want to listen to them and say, wow, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Let's talk further. Let's see how we can come to create that common bridge, that commonality. Let's work towards something of value. This is the day to make a change. If nothing else on this day that you think about Dr. Martin Luther King, you may think, oh, it's a free day. In the bank we were, the day's off. Bank's closed. It's a federal holiday. Go have a fun day. But this day is really more about the conversation that we should have. We should change our thought process. We should eliminate the inequality. Keep the door open talks about removing the barriers between what one has over another, what one is favored over another. And I'm not talking about a social revolution, but just a simple, calm, structured process to remove the barriers, to remove the classes, to realize that we are in this together, that we are working. And it doesn't matter how much money you make. Why are we focused on that? Because then we close that door. We say, oh, I can't have a conversation with that person because that person makes way more than I do, and they should give me some money. No, that's not the look. The look is, you're a person, I'm a person. We are all structured the same. Let's sit down and have a conversation about how we can make this world a better world. And perhaps the other person shares a larger share because they can afford to give more, but is working still together to come to that solution, to walk together towards a greater tomorrow, towards something that stands. I have a vision. I have a perspective. I have a dream. What is your dream? What are you planning to do to keep your door open, to welcome those that have a different opinion, to have a different conversation, to change what seems to be out of alignment with the values of this country, with the values that you hold dear, with the leadership skills that you should be developing, with the thought to invest in others. This is the day. This is the point. This is the moment for you to stand on this January 15th, to stand up and say, this far and no further. I am going to make the change not to cause discontent. I may disrupt the thinking because we don't want to go the same way that we have been going. But I'm going to sit down and I'm going to welcome my brothers and sisters at the table. And we're going to walk together towards a solution that builds a better country, builds a better world, builds a better family, builds a better person. Start with yourself. What can you do today to build a better person? If I can be of help, and I've been able to help others walk through that conversation and lead to success in their lives, to take them to the next level in their life, to work towards a better dream, a better success, a better moment for themselves, for their families, for their world around them. The change is awesome. I've seen it over and over again. When we sit down and open the doors and allow ourselves, not only externally, but internally, we open that door to our heart, we open our door to our families, we open the door to our world, we change the way we think, and our lives are be better off for it. When we sit down together and build towards a better community, a better world, to a dream where all are connected, all are based in a reality, a structure of reality, that one is interrelated with the next, that all things around us, in us, and through us are interrelated. Change cannot happen until we realize the door needs to be open and the walls need to come down. We pray for this country. We pray for you. We pray for this moment to see your tomorrow be better, be more exciting, be fantastically aware and consciously and intentionally driven to make a better day. This is my hope. This is my dream. This is my moment that I share with you. Hi, Deb. I'm just closing out today. Keep the door open. And especially on this day in the United States, on this day where we honor the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Open the door. Have the conversation, but come to a better world. Come to a moment where our lives lead to a greater day. Be well, take care, and do good things. If you're watching this on replay, please leave a comment. What touched you? What are you going to do today to keep that door open? Thanks, Deb. Yes, she says, yes, I'll keep the door open. Awesome. Make the conversation open for those around you to welcome them in, no matter who they are, stranger or friend. Bring them in and hold them in value, hold them in respect, hold them in the future that you can make with them. See you soon. Take care.